What is going on, everybody? Halfway to Halloween. For this panel in particular, we've got John from Higby Horror Hunt co-hosting with me because, as you know, on my team, he is the resident hunt owner-operator, and he wanted to co-host this one because we are super excited to have with us of haunt fame and now haunt and horror card game fame, hopefully, knock on wood, as it's about to drop. I know I got my pre-order in, super excited. But Patrick, Nate, and Jacob from Oh the Horror, we are so excited to have all three of you gentlemen. You guys, thank you so much for taking the time out once again to be part of our event with us. And how are you guys doing now that we've officially, it seems like we are on the road to recovery, and now that we are halfway to Halloween, the second half, knock on wood again, will be even easier, and this Halloween 2021 is just going to be spooktacular, man.
Yeah, we're doing awesome, man. Yeah. It's very exciting. We actually just, you guys are the first to hear this, but we just sent the game to print yesterday. So like all the creation is done and we just sent it to print yesterday. So very exciting.
Well, I know I got the pre-order thing that went out like a cryptic message in a horror movie of like some kind of like Wicker Man gathering. The time has come, like you have been summoned. It is time to enter your payment information.
That's it.
So we are.
Yeah. Speaking of which, we wanted to. I wanted to make sure that we touched on it before we got done with this. But what we'd like to do is we'd like to offer up a special code to everybody watching the Halfway to Halloween special. So if you go to our site and you go to either othemedia.com/preorder or you go to othehorrorgame.com, you can enter a special coupon code. Just enter halfway, and you get 10% off the game.
Wow.
So that way, everybody watching, celebrating halfway to Halloween, man. We're like Nate said, the game just went to printer, and we can't be more excited to get this game in the hands of everybody. Haunt enthusiasts are gonna love it. Horror fans are gonna love it, man. Because the thing is that when we set out to build a haunt, or we set out to draw anything spooky, or we set out to do anything creative in that vein, we approach it from the perspective of a fan first. Mm-hmm. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that people understand that this is a game by fans for fans, so that they can understand that this game is filled with so many tropes and so many wonderful things that are going to make Halloween really, really special for them this year, because it's going to be a great party game for everybody.
And we apologize. We've lost Nate. We know he was kind of remotely out there, but you just mentioned, Patrick, some of the tropes and some of the different art, and just take a look at this art, and we'll get rid of the banner here for a second so you can fully see. But like some of these cards, man, like you have the Karen card. Like, who doesn't want to be able to play the Karen card in a horror-themed card game?
Who doesn't want to kill Karen? Who doesn't want to kill Karen?
And my God, like, who hasn't, I hate to say this, but let's all be real, who hasn't come across Karen in a haunt event in line at 1:30 a.m. Like, we all know that Karen that exists in that situation. Nate is back on. Nate back with
I'm
us here.
back. I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. I'm a little bit remote today, but yeah, I'm back.
We were just saying, man, we were showing some of Jacob's artwork in the Karen card, and we were all saying the haunt game, the horror game, like any haunt fan knows a Karen at 1:30 a.m.
Oh yeah, man, absolutely. Karen's one of my favorite cards. Yeah.
And Jacob absolutely slayed that hairstyle.
Oh man, it's the waterfall in the front with the vicious knives in the back.
It's just exactly right? It's just exactly right. That's the thing.
Well, you guys also illustrated Kevin Smith. Was it Kevin Smith that was saying something about this game? And he had gotten wind about the fact that this game was getting ready pre-production wise back in between your guys' first appearance and today. And now I know that was on your Twitter, your social media, that you guys got to add like a special card, a Kevin Smith card for Oh the Horror.
Yeah, Kevin asked specifically. We actually said to him, hey, we'll make you a killer in the game if you really want to be a killer. And he's like, no, make me the victim card. I'm always playing the victim card. I want to be the victim. So we were more than happy to throw a victim card in. And what's amazing about it is that Kevin Smith is now a card in our base set forever. So like, people are going to be able to order that game and get to be able to kill him numerous times in all sorts of nasty, filthy ways.
That is pretty rad to think that Kevin Smith out of the gate in pre-production has signed on. Like, maybe like if there's an Oh the Horror, like Cards Against the Humanity has had so many like additional things, or now there's like Cards Against the Wizarding World or Cards Against Star Wars and all these different ones. So the luck hopefully is on your guys' side, and there's like an expansion pack. Maybe you guys get to do like a whole like Hollywood Hits edition, and you get to do like Carpenter, you get to do like all the the different guys down the line too to sprinkle in. That would be totally cool.
Yeah, it would. The major focus for us in this first round for the base set was to go the way that honestly we had been working for years in Horror Nights, where we had that original feel. We wanted to create characters and situations for those characters that felt not only genuine but also towards the horror genre, and really sold the idea that like, okay, it doesn't matter if anybody has seen a horror movie before playing our game. As soon as they lay down a killer and a victim and they start looking at the methods, they're going to know exactly how to play this. But going that original route allowed us to really create for ourselves our own little game universe. And then if we end up layering other facets to that later on, which we're more than happy to do, and we will be looking forward to doing that, it gives a nice base level game to be able to add on to in the future.
So Nate, with your experience in Halloween and haunt season and horror films, the game in itself, it seems like it is its own horror film that plays out around the table. Did you guys try to create that experience as you developed the rules and such?
Yeah, I almost believe we can't really help it. You know what I mean? We've been doing Horror Nights for 10, 15 years, you know what I mean? And so that feel comes in with the game as well. I think the last podcast we did with you, we talked about people running out of the houses and laughing and having a great time, making fun of their friends, because they got scared in the house. That's definitely the same kind of feel that this game is going to have. Finally, people are able to hang out around a table and have fun and like get together. And we want that same thing. We want this, that we kind of brought that fun part of horror into this game. It's like a party game. And we're going to, when people come together, it's going to be really fun. Everybody's going to laugh, have a good time. And that's kind of how it relates to Halloween Horror Nights. You know what I mean?
Jacob, I got to think that the Karen's tough to beat, but you getting to illustrate all these different characters. I mean, getting to make Kevin Smith the character in this game is pretty rad. But do you have a particular favorite that you enjoyed illustrating more than most?
Yeah, my two favorite cards are Zombie Zara and Nudist Nate. And yeah, those are my two favorites. Nudist Nate was fun because he's just jumping at you straight naked, and we named him after this schmuck right here.
This guy. Yeah. It's my favorite card, but I can't help it. Like, it's also a great card. The quip for the card is shocking on multiple levels, and I just love that card so much because he's just flying through the air naked. It's pretty fun. Yeah.
That's one thing. Thankfully, we never got too close at Halloween Horror Nights. Is any the closest we came in L.A. I don't know if you guys ever had them in Orlando, but L.A. Horror Nights, they had the Flasher at one point, and he was like in the New York streets, and he was flashing. But when he flashed you, it was like all his guts would spill out of his coat.
That's
the
kind of
cool
fun.
thing we had old Nate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know we'd ever gotten the Flasher through legal in Orlando. No way.
No.
We have a little bit stricter guidelines over here in Florida. Yeah.
The haunt perspective this season, I do want to take time to mention, Patrick, that you did come on board into the indie haunt scene last year, and now you are teaming up with Scream and Stream, which we visited on opening night this year. But you guys having such a background in the haunt, not just in the haunt community, but you guys are your fans first. And we have John here who has a beloved haunt every season in our hometown. I was just curious if you guys, in your experience on your way up, if you had anybody or if you've accumulated any kind of like advice that you would give to a outside haunt or an independent haunt with a guy who has like aspirations to join a Horror Nights team or any kind of like a commercial corporate team. Is there any kind of advice that you could share on career path wise?
Well, I know that as far as elevating the piece that you're working on, we were always really fond about kind of a three-legged stool. You got to have the character, you got to have the story, and you got to have the environment, and all three are incredibly important. You can short on two of those. You can short on environment because people are forgiving of black walls, and you can forgive, right? You can forgive on location because as an independent, you can be a little bit more guerrilla in where you place it. The one thing you can't short on, and that people will feel a difference of, is if you short on story. The story is the most important thing to sell as far as a haunt is concerned, and making sure that you do that. By doing that, you automatically elevate your local haunt to the point of having recognition built up, and that recognition will yield results as far as moving on or elevating or getting to the next level or whatever it is. There was an independent haunt here in Tampa, the Radley experience, that was run for years by Cody Meacham, and then Cody found his way to Universal because he was so detailed in his story and his sets. The team at Universal couldn't help but want to poach him, because we would make the trip down to Tampa to go take a look at those haunts to make sure to just experience them, because he just looked dope. And you're talking about like a haunt that goes through his house. You're not even talking like a location based haunt. Like, he took his house apart for 2 months, 3 months, and built this on a yearly basis. It's the kind of thing where, if you've got a good story, if you've got a good connection to the material, then people are going to notice. One of the things that we talked about really early on for the Horror was that we wanted this to serve as kind of it's a party game in nature, right? But also, and I think also just as important, it's a 3-card horror story that you're building. And as fans of story and as fans of narrative, we're giving the chance for players to finish that story. And I think that's the most fun part about it. I think that it's so much fun that people get to lay down a killer victim and then the methods of death and really decide amongst themselves who takes the round. There's also another saying that I'm fond of for advancement or whatever it is, that the more you do, the more you get to do. So if you're visible in the industry of knowing what that step is, there are people that will reach out to you to help you along. And I think you'll find that. I know that if you've done this for years, you know that for a fact, that people will make trips like they're going to Mecca just to come see the haunt. And it's a wonderful thing, right? It's really the advice that I've got is you got to keep plugging no matter what. And story first, followed closely by environment and the others.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, so with me, because I started out with home haunting, and eventually grew into moving into a building, and then just from there we constantly still expand and do other things. Is that kind of how that worked out for you guys? Did you start doing any of the haunting stuff and then kind of grow into making your way to HHN and all that and to creating this card game, or was it just something you fell into laterally?
For me, I was an actor in the park who had acting and directing experience outside, and I was primarily a theater director and a theater actor. And so signing into the park and going to Halloween Horror Nights for the very first time, I thought, my God, the potential for this place. It's huge and there's nothing you can't do. Now, I found out very quickly doing the actual work that there are several things
there's a lot of things you can't do. I'm just here to say there's a lot of things you're not allowed to do. That's what's been wonderful about Oh the Horror. There's so many times that me and Patrick are in a room writing Oh the Horror, and then we say, can we do this? And then we kind of look around and then we go, oh yeah, there's no one here to tell us we can't. We can do whatever the hell we want.
Well, let me flash Jacob's artwork again, and you guys all read the descriptions on the card.
I love Sister Susan.
And read the Karen, the subtext on the Karen card.
Yeah, so Sister Susan is 80 years of abstinence, one bloody, bloody night. And I love that because you have no idea where that ruler has been.
Sister Susan is scary because she actually exists.
Oh.
No.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah. Yeah, and then you've got somebody who was raised Catholic playing the game. They immediately clock into that, and Sister Susan all of a sudden becomes their favorite killer in the entire deck.
Right.
The Karen to that point. There's a certain amount of legal responsibility that we had with Horror Nights. Karen would have never flown. I mean, Karen herself would have been a fine character.
Never.
But the subtext of continuing a proud tradition of being a cunt since 1619 has so many levels of we're not allowed to do that. Yep. That it makes us proud and happy to be able to present that card.
You're telling me Universal? HHN, not even in the 2002 to 2008 era would have greenlit and cunty Karen for a scare.
No way, not a chance.
Wow.
Nope. They would have found. Now, here's the thing, and I have to preface this because we all made our bones at Horror Nights, or at least part of what we have in our resume is made up of Horror Nights. They would have found a different way of being able to describe it. They would have found a different.
That's absolutely true. They wouldn't have taken her out altogether. It would have just been we just had to shift it. We would have to change it, But with this, we could just say exactly what we want to say, and that makes it funnier, right?
Yeah.
And we do want to remind everybody who's coming onto the stream that if you go to Oh the Horror, search Oh the Horror on social media, or Oh the Horror is just ohthehorror.com, right? Your guys' website?
The Horror Game.
ohthehorrorgame.com, and use that code there that's on the bottom of the screen. Use code halfway for your halfway to Halloween 10% off. That's very awesome of you guys watching. I'm telling you, this game, if you're a fan with Cards Against Humanity, or there's several others since Cards Against Humanity dropped that have like come along and have kind of tried to replicate that experience, and you're a fan of that, and then you're a fan of horror, like 1 + 1 equals absolute like heart emoji in this case, because the horror game is like your win. This game is fantastic, man. And then to top it off, you're helping the guys out who came from something that I know, at least 90% of our audience has been through mazes that you guys have all had a hand in. Patrick and Nate from the direction and the actual developmental to in our face phases, and then Jacob on the artistic side. So these are guys that are behind some of the stuff that we love to have taken place with every fall. So you're helping support guys that did something that we all love, and it's not like they're asking you to buy something that you wouldn't buy if you saw sitting on the shelf anyway. The horror game is something that is super, super rad looking, and it's becoming ready to push out. They're getting ready to distribute this thing. And it's exciting to see the progress of this thing, because we had you like in January, February, and you were just getting ready to push the Kickstarter forward, and that had some really good success to it. And now talking to you guys again, and you're just getting ready to put this thing out into the masses' hands. It's exciting times, man.
Yeah, there's not. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, Nate, do you want to speak to how the game has changed since the last time we were on?
Oh man, yeah, just so much.
It's not the same game.
Here's the thing:
it's a better game.
Yeah, we did game testing, right? And with game testing, we're like, we don't want just people that love this sort of thing. We want every single person from every single walk of life,
Yeah.
And that was what was beautiful, is we brought these people in these groups 6 at a time for an entire weekend. We did a ton of different people, ton of different walks of life, and the game played for every single one of them. And that felt so good, because it felt like, obviously we have our horror fans. We have those people that love horror. It just doesn't make sense. There's not going to be any horror fan that doesn't want this game. And that's all there is to it. This is made for them. But it really reaches further than that. When we did game testing, we realized like people just have fun and love this game, and we have we used to have a couple things called plot twists in the game that kind of changed the game a little bit, but we added a whole bunch more plot twists because people really enjoyed the little bit of shift in gameplay or a little change in gameplay. So we added a lot of that, and we just gained so much information from that game test that made an awesome game even better, So that was great. Are there children playing in someone's house? I just feel
Jacob. I think Jacob has kids playing in the background.
That's fine. That's fine. Put up the Karen card so I can read it again, really loudly.
I am gonna mute myself unless I'm talking. So
I feel like somewhere there's children playing, and we're absolutely going to say cunt 7 times. So I just feel like we should make sure they can't hear that. That's my
5 more times.
5 more. 5 more times. 5 more times.
Say cunt.
Oh, he's on mute. Okay, we're good.
You say it 5 times, then a Karen will appear.
Oh God, Jesus!
Everybody, hold on. Cunt. Now we have 4 times.
All right, cool. All right, cool. Cunt. We got 3. We're down to 3, fellas. We're down to 3. Yeah. Jacob can't say it, which is great because the rest of us have at least one free. That's awesome. Yeah, no, to that point, Nate was talking about the fact that, last time we were on, we had put a couple of plot twists in. But yeah, that game testing really showed us that we wanted to increase the ability for the guests to interact more with the stories, not just play one card, and be done. Because other card games have that mode, right? They have, okay, it's this, and then it's this, and then you match up with this. What's amazing about what I think is amazing about the horror as well, on top of everything else, is the fact that like a horror film or like a horror short story, it's constantly changing and there's constantly rooms for sequels, right? So in our game, we've got 100 killers, 100 victims, and 200 methods of death, which means you've got over 2 million combinations of gameplay that could possibly happen. So you can keep playing the game and you're going to get different killers with different victims, which are going to mean completely different methods. And that's one of the most fun aspects of the game, is that it's constantly evolving and constantly changing. And that's not even including the expansion decks that we're going to be getting out.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions is, when you're developing characters and coming up with different story angles and stuff and giving the, attention that it seems like you guys are coming and giving to with all the little, limericks on Jacob's cards and stuff, like, are you guys just constantly turning out different, little turn of phrases and characters and possibilities and stuff for expansions down the line?
I mean, truly, we released a picture at some point on our social media that had a whiteboard where me and Patrick were going through all the different kinds of ways you could murder people. And it was just so, it was just so horror, like people who love horror. It's just like, we literally had like probably 30 different ways to murder people, like types of ways to murder people. And then we just had little check marks because we wanted to make sure we ran the gamut of ways to murder people,
Not as many electrocutions as you would think.
No,
not as many.
Yeah. But certainly, we had this one group called Random, and it's just some ways that me and Patrick thought of. It really, you realize how deprived we are, to be honest, because
not deprived,
depraved. Yeah. So as depraved. Sorry, I've had some tequila, but as per usual, as depraved as we are, because the random section was the most check marks because we just thought of some random crazy ways to kill people. And it's just part of it. You know what I mean? That's our job. It's our job to think of this horror stuff. But in the end, it's really escapism, right? It's folks that love horror and they come and they kind of escape through this stuff. And that's the beauty of it. We created so many new characters that you've never heard of before. While we put all the tropes in that everybody loves, we also had a lot of room to create a whole lot of different characters that I think people are going to see and go, I'd like to see a story about this, or I'd like to read a book about this, or I'd like to see a movie about this, And so we had a lot of room to create new horror, and that was beautiful.
This almost seems like the blackboard from Cabin in the Woods, the betting pool when they're taking all the money. It's almost like you guys found a way to take that and all the context that it offered and box it and sell it to people in a game form with all the possibilities you guys came up with.
It's so cool that you say that because we liken ourselves to that so many times. When we thought about just the aesthetics of the game, we were like, we want this to be like they go in that basement from that movie, you know what I mean? And or they go in their grandpa's basement and they find a game they shouldn't find, and then they start playing it, and some horribly horror shit happens, you know what I mean? And that's really what we were going for. So for you to mention that in particular, it really is. We just had a whiteboard of all these ways to murder and all these ways to all these ways to kill and all. I mean, it sounds terrible. It's so great that this is a horror podcast because everybody here will go, yeah, man. But if you put us on any other podcast, they'd be like, what's wrong with these people?
In fact, during our game testing, right in the middle of gameplay, somebody looked over at us and goes, "Oh my God, what is wrong with you?"
Yeah.
And you're like, "Yeah, all right, we'll take that as a compliment. That's going on the website."
That's it. We obviously want this to transcend, past horror and be a game that's fun for all adults and things. But I mean, we wrote this for our horror family. You guys, all the people that come to horror nights, I mean, that's who we wrote this game for. And we know those people are going to love this and just eat it up, and that's really our first and most important priority was to to answer, what those people are looking for. We wanted to share that.
So speaking with that, creating this game, did you guys kind of go in, obviously knowing horror fans are going to be playing this throughout the year, but for like non-big horror fans, that this might become kind of a new traditional Halloween party game? Is that kind of like what you guys were striving for as far as coming up with this idea?
I mean, yes, and because people are going to get together and play party games at Halloween, and they haven't really had one that is so as open and welcoming, I think, as the Horror is.
Yeah.
I think that it's going to be so much fun for people to play, to your point, throughout the year, but it is a celebration of all of the things that go bump in the night. It is a celebration of all of those tropes. And it's also, because there are so many varied characters in here, it's so relatable. Somebody in your group that you're playing with is going to have a profession that is showcased in the game, or there's going to be moments where you flip a card and go, oh, and the entire room loses their mind because they realize that we're actually not talking about, I mean, it's a character, obviously. We're not basing this on anybody real, but all of a sudden you're like, oh no, shit, that's Curtis. So
that's the beautiful thing, is that like we picked on everybody, including ourselves. Like, you can murder us in the game.
Yeah.
By the way, you can murder the shit out of us. But like, we picked on everybody because we're like, everybody has those things in life that kind of bug them or bother them. The guy who has the really loud muffler who drives by, it's like, come on, man, you don't need that muffler in your car. Just different things that like bother people. You know what I mean? The barista that takes your coffee order way too seriously. It's like we've all come across those things, and we were like, well, if we're going to murder people, we might as well murder all these things that annoy the shit out of us in life. But it's not anybody specific. It's just, and we also acknowledge the fact that we have the same quirks. Again, you can murder us too, but everybody has these quirky things that bother them, and it's so fun to like throw them into the game as the victims because it makes it a little easier to kill them. You know what I mean? But in a way, it also allowed us to kind of release a little bit of this angst that we have towards certain things that bother us in life. So that was kind of fun too.
What's also great about that is that the different people, whether it be the barista or the woman working at the DMV or the loud muffler guy, what's amazing about that is that with Jacob's artwork, we were really able to capture exactly why you don't like that individual, or exactly why that individual would work perfectly within a horror film. You've seen that person in a horror film before. You know exactly how that person's going to die in the first reel or the second reel, or that guy dies right in the beginning of the third act, or that guy dies before the credits are even done rolling. What's wonderful is that the artwork really does show all of the attributes of those individuals and really gives you a sense of it's fun to kill these people. It's not just a gameplay.
And that's the that's the understanding in any horror film. It's like, you can't just murder somebody that everybody loves. They have to have some sort of quirk or some sort of weird thing that you almost have to qualify it. You know what I mean? And so we brought those tropes into the game in the sense of like, we got to give them this specific person. It's not like every barista, it's this barista. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so we give them the reason why, okay, well, this is why they go out in the first act, that sort of thing,
It's like Cabin in the Woods again with the stereotypes of the stoner, the jock, and those types of characters. You guys just expanded on that by creating more of those types of characters. That you would obviously be like, oh yeah, this would be the first one.
Yeah. What's also fun about that though is that it's Cabin in the Woods as far as the victims were concerned, but we paid particular attention to the type of killer because we knew that we had to sell the death as it played in gameplay. So there was the whiteboard of all the individual kills, but then we had to break down all of the kills that were required. You had to require a certain set of skill to be able to do, and what are the ones that all the monsters in our deck can do. Because it's not just a guy with a knife coming at you and scaring you and stabbing you. It's also some really, really messed up creatures that we have inside this game, which are going to be a lot of fun to be able to pair against and use different kills. The methods of death are so varied because we wanted to make sure that we had the opportunity to be able to pay off storylines regardless of who was killing and who was dying.
This is really the beauty of it, man. Like, if you love horror and you love horror nights and you want to get inside a couple of the creators' heads, this game is that. It's like all the crazy shit we couldn't say and do, and it's all in the game, bro. It's all in the game. When you go through the method cards, you're like, oh, like, even as a horror fan, I think you'll be like, that's hilarious. That's hilarious. Then you'll come to one. You'll at least come to one and you'll go, oh, God. Oh. Like,
they went there.
Yeah. And that's, it's like unleashing the horror that's in our brain constantly because we're constantly creating this stuff. And this is the world we live in,
And honestly, during the creation phase, we would have moments where we would say one thing and one of the three of us would go, we're going to put that in the expansion deck. That's going in the expansion deck. You can't put that in the base deck. That's going to go over here in a special expansion deck that says, oh, you're going to hate this deck. Like, it's gotta go over.
I gotta take a minute to say what Patrick means is Patrick would text me and Jacob at 2 a.m. and share some stuff that even made me go, oh God, like I'm gonna have nightmares now. And I'd have to like bring him back and be like, put that in a different deck that basically says don't do this deck unless you're ready for it. Like, because there's some stuff that really goes too far. Even for horror fans.
With them, I mean, I know the possibilities that the game presents seem pretty much endless as far as the combinations in which you could do a victim, a killer, and a means to an end. So I got to ask you guys, if you could merge the two, physical medium haunted house, budget not being an issue, and you could create your favorite combination in the game, what do you think would be like the coolest haunted house scare if you could create like a physical victim killer and in ways that the killer is killing the victim for a haunted house, which would present like that classic HHN splatter. So it's like all over the person as they walk by that we all know and love from like Evil Dead and all those mazes. Like what character?
I have an immediate answer for this because there's a numerous killers that we created for this, but there's one, and it's actually a group of killers. That's one card. It's called the Faceless. Mm-hmm. And if you look at that card, I'm just like, this right here would be an incredible house. It would be an incredible movie. It would be an incredible, like, put it in any medium. I want to expound on the Faceless. That's going to be the first thing that I drive these guys to, like, try to build into something bigger. I love that Faceless card so much. And it's a group of people that are, well, they're faceless, right? But when you see the card, you'll see and you'll go, oh yeah, this really is. There's just so much place to grow with that. And I love that idea. And I think it could start as a haunted house, but it really could grow into something that could be really big, I think. And that's my thing. That's my one that I lean into that and I love it. I can't wait to expound on that story,
So Jacob, something I'm curious about is when the other two would come up with some crazy idea for a character or something and tell you about it to draw it out, was it pretty immediate for you to figure out what it was going to look like, or was that a whole process to where it was like, all right, hang on? Like,
it was honestly different for every card. There were definitely some cards that they would give me a name and there's like that instant idea. And sometimes I'd get that instant idea and I would put it to the side because I don't want to jump on the first idea. A lot of times I went back to the first idea after iterating for a while, but process is different for every character. And there's a lot of times where they would come up with an idea for a card. I would draw it out. And then that would go back and influence what the quip was for the card because I did it a certain way. And they're like, no, this would work better if we just change this line to this now. So there's a really good back and forth with a lot of the cards.
Nice.
Right on, man. Well, moving forward towards the second half of 2021, now you guys are in the pre-order fulfillment phase. I know if you had requested the pre-order, like we said off the air, I got my email saying it's time to get ready to start getting this thing. What is the ETA? Do you have any idea of when people can expect to have the Horror in their hands?
We actually finally do have an ETA, and again, this really depends more on shipping than anything else, because that's a little up in the air because of COVID and everything that's going on. But we're really looking at end of July, beginning of August as as kind of a delivery time.
So in time for haunt season, in time for
Oh, certainly. Yes, certainly it's going to be here by the time you want to play this game for haunt season. Absolutely.
Well, right on, man. So everybody go out there again, ohthehorrorgame.com, and use that 10% off code, man. Halfway for celebrating the fact that we are halfway to Halloween. We're halfway to the best time of the year. We're halfway to getting to see the secrets in which Patrick has in store for you for Scream and Stream. We're more than halfway to you getting the Horror in your hand, but you're halfway to being able to play this card game in your hotel room and then go to whatever haunts, whether it be Horror Nights or whatever else you are visiting. And that is the most exciting part of it all. Patrick,
you just blew my mind with that, Jimmy.
Patrick, Nate, Jacob, man, thank you so much for taking the time to tell us even more and get us even more excited for the release of this one, man.
Absolutely, man.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us on, and truly, you guys and all the horror fans, man, that is the whole reason we made this game, is for our family, our horror family. So we can't wait for you guys to play this game. You're just gonna love it. I can't wait.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. All you guys watching for Halfway to Halloween, stay tuned. We will be back at the top of the hour with Sam Todd from Trick or Treat. Stay tuned.
Thanks, everybody. Happy Halloween.